Hey everybody, this is your host, the Platinum Knight, here with another First Impressions video, and today's First Impressions is The Mandalorian and Grogu. And before any of you ask me, yes, these are Grogu ears that I ended up getting all for free when me and my friend went to an early screening to go see this movie. And yeah, guys, which, by the way, I highly recommend you also check out me going to see The Mandalorian and Grogu, link down below in the description, because yeah, there was an interesting story that happened behind the scenes. So it's been 7 years since the last mainstream Star Wars movie, which was the not so good Rise of Skywalker. After Star Wars Episode 9 being a major disappointment, this pretty much left Disney no choice but to change up their strategy. And what was that strategy? Just make a really fun, interesting TV show. When it comes to the Mandalorian TV series, I am a huge fan when it comes to this show. Like, I remember watching the very first episode being genuinely surprised on how good it was. One of the biggest and the most obvious highlight of the show itself is none other than Baby Yoda, aka Grogu. But yeah, guys, I mean, I do consider myself a huge fan of The Mandalorian, and to be completely honest, I actually like The Mandalorian way more than most of the Star Wars movies. I know some of you might disagree with that, but it is my opinion. And what are my thoughts on The Mandalorian and Grogu? I loved it. I really enjoyed this movie, everybody. This is definitely a huge love letter to Mandalorian fans. Unfortunately, this is also one of the most overhated movies of this year, which I'll talk about later on. But yes, everybody, I really liked this movie, and I don't understand what exactly people were expecting out of this movie. Well, okay, I can probably take a couple of guesses, but I'm gonna go ahead and start off. What did I like about The Mandalorian and Grogu? Well, for starters, that opening scene when they're in the snow is awesome. It was definitely brilliantly well done. This movie does a really great job when it comes to the action. We're talking about explosions, we're talking about fighting to the death, we're talking about even bounties on top of bounties. But of course, what really makes this film hold together so well is none other than the title suggests, The Mandalorian and Grogu. It was really nice seeing both of them again, especially after season 3. It felt more like a really friendly reunion, you know? It was really cool seeing Pedro Pascal playing as the Mandalorian, basically being the John Wick of the Star Wars universe. And of course, it was super adorable seeing Grogu, especially on the big screen. I guess another thing I really liked about this film, or at least what I found interesting, is surprisingly, how do you pronounce his name? Rota or Rata? Yeah, Rata was a really interesting character. I mean, this isn't really too much of a spoiler, but what I really liked about this Rota character is, aka Jabba the Hutt's son, I really liked the whole dynamic that Rota hated his father. He doesn't want to be anything like him. I mean, to be fair, Han Solo did screw over Jabba the Hutt really bad, but it doesn't matter though, because Jabba was still an awful person. He was part of a cult, and on top of that, but he actually owned slaves, as some of you may already know, and Jabba would kill those slaves whenever they just didn't appeal to him anymore. So yeah, I really liked how Jabba the Hutt's son didn't want to be become anything like him. But yeah, I thought that was overall a really positive message. I mean, if your family or your parents were a bunch of pieces of crap, yeah, the idea should be is to not become anything like them. What else can I talk about? Well, the music was really well done, and they don't just play the Mandalorian theme song from the TV show, but it also equally has its fair share of its own soundtracks for this film. But I do admit though, some of the soundtracks in this movie kind of felt a little bit out of place. Yeah, some of the songs were either techno or a little bit of synth wavy, and at first I thought that it was a little bit strange, but I guess that's what they wanted to go with. Okay, Baby Yoda, for now I'm just gonna go ahead and set you down. What else can I say about this film? Oh yeah, and the most important thing that I feel that people should be aware of is, let's say for some of you who have never seen a single episode of The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, this movie also does a really good job of not only recapping everything, but it also does a great job at being its own standalone movie that has nothing to do with the TV show itself, which is very lucky for some who haven't seen the show. The best way I can describe it is this film does a really good job being very self-centered, you know what I mean? But yes, it is possible to go into this movie without seeing the Disney Plus TV show. Sure, obviously, if you've seen all 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, including the Book of Boba Fett, well then of course this movie is gonna be a lot more nostalgic to you, as it did I. But like I said, The Mandalorian and Grogu does a very great job being its own thing. So for those of you who are looking for a really epic action movie set in the Star Wars universe, then this would have to be it. No context required. Okay, so here is where I'm gonna have to get into the controversy. Unfortunately, everybody, this movie ended up bombing really hard at the box office. It was definitely a huge major disappointment, especially for Disney. I may be just a little bit biased here, seeing how I am a big fan of The Mandalorian, but yeah, I do think it's really sad how this film ended up flopping at the box office. But to be fair though, there are a couple of factors as to why this is. One of the biggest factors is Star Wars fatigue. Even though it has been 7 years since we have even gotten a Star Wars movie, or at least a Star Wars film that has been on the big screen, if you factor in the TV shows on Disney Plus, yeah, that might have contributed to the Star Wars fatigue. I mean, think about it. Despite The Mandalorian being a very good show, we also got the Book of Boba Fett, even though that's sort of The Mandalorian 2.5, but we also got Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, The Bad Batch, and of course, The Acolyte, which was poorly received, and I have a feeling that's probably what contributed to the fatigue the most. So in a way, I kinda don't really blame too many people for being tired of Star Wars. Another factor as to why this movie ended up bombing so hard at the box office is because, well, ticket prices, especially when it comes to going to a movie theater, are a bit pricey. It's too expensive going to the movies nowadays, especially if you are planning on getting popcorn or a couple of snacks. Going to the movies is not as cheap compared to even when Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker came out. Most people nowadays would rather just wait until it ends up on a streaming service, well in this case on Disney Plus, and just watch it at home for cheaper. Alright, and the last factor I'm gonna talk about is people saying that it's just not a good movie, which this is where I'm going to have to give a little bit of a hot take, because the general consensus seems to be, well, I mean, mean, this movie isn't bad as in it's poorly written. People just say that it is overly cliche, it is too action-packed, and it focuses a little bit too much on the fun instead of giving it nuance. As I mentioned earlier, yeah, I don't really understand what people were expecting out of this movie. Were people expecting to finally explain certain stuff and plot points from the show itself? I mean, okay, fair enough. Sure, Disney could have easily answered some questions in the TV show, but I guess that's not what Disney was going for. They just wanted to tell a self-centered standalone story about the Mandalorian and Grogu. Here is what I think was going to happen, okay? If this movie would have been successful, then we only would have gotten movies after that, and then they probably would have most likely answered a couple of questions that wasn't answered when it came to the Disney Plus show. But this movie ended up flopping in the box office anyway, so I have a feeling that we are most definitely are going to get The Mandalorian Season 4, because think about it, now that Disney has actually gotten their answer that, yeah, people are just not interested in a Mandalorian movie, so of course they're most likely gonna go back to TV or streaming services, so I think that's most likely what's gonna happen. I think the Mandalorian show is definitely gonna continue with Season 4, and even though I just got done saying I think it sucks how the Mandalorian and Grogu ended up bombing, at the same time, maybe this could be a saving grace in disguise, because that means we're gonna probably get more TV show. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe Disney will make a new season, maybe they won't. I'm not confirming anything, but hey, a Mandalorian fan can hope, right? Regardless if we end up getting another season or somehow another movie, even though the previous one didn't do so well, I am definitely gonna be there to support it. Anyways, and I think that's pretty much about it, everybody. Those were pretty much my thoughts. I really enjoyed this movie. I had so much fun. The action is great. It is super epic. And yeah, I do think that this movie is a bit overhated. But then again, at the end of the day, that's just my opinion. And for those of you that thought that it was just decent or okay, or if you ended up just not liking this movie, then I also respect your opinion. But as for me, as a Mandalorian fan, I got what I wanted. I mean, all I wanted was to just see both the Mandalorian and Grogu again, and that's exactly what I got. So at the end of the day, I'm happy. Alright everybody, that's it for this first impressions video. That's it for my first impressions on the Mandalorian and Grogu. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for new videos. This has been your host, the Platinum Knight, and peace out everybody. Say bye, Grogu. Alright, peace out everyone. You have yourselves a good one.